Hey, welcome to A Game for Your Thoughts. Today we're talking about Ori and the Blind Forest. So Ori and the Blind Forest is a game developed by Moon Studios and was published by Microsoft. So the story of Ori and the Blind Forest follows a forest spirit named Ori as he has to travel through the land to save the Great Spirit Tree and kind of just revitalize, it's kind of gotten shitty. And so now it's time for him to go around, clean things up, and kind of just save the forest. So I would love to stand here and tell you how much I loved Ori and the Blind Forest and how it's one of the best Metroidvania games I've ever played, but unfortunately this just isn't the case. At the beginning, it was very apparent that a lot of love and passion went into this game, and I loved that. I thought it was great. You could tell that just the developers had a great time building this experience. It was a really good passion project. I really did enjoy a lot about this game. The music, the visuals, and the beginning of the story was great. It just had this really awesome intro that just really got me sucked into the world. Like I said, this music is gorgeous, and it fits perfectly with the world and the environment. The beginning of this game is just super emotional and it really gets you invested in the world and the character, and it's a great start. It really got me hooked at first and I loved it. It was just so awesome and epic and just really set up this amazing adventure. I was so stoked to get out and explore and see what this world had to offer, but very quickly it unfortunately fell into frustration, confusion, and just unhappiness while playing this game. And before you leave a mean comment and go watch a different video, please hear me out. I feel like I have some really good cases and I really want to explain myself. So I really love Metroidvania games. Any of the Metroids, Symphony of the Night, Hollow Knight, they're all great Metroidvania games and I really love this style. I just wish Ori and the Blind Forest, I wish this could have just tucked right into that group, but unfortunately I found it to be on the opposite spectrum. It seemed like it had a great setup for the genre. I was really excited to see what they could do. It just seemed different. It had a different feel to it at first. I was really excited. I was like, this is going to be one of the better ones I've played. But just, unfortunately, it didn't stick the landing. Like I said, I love the music, the soundtrack, and just the visuals were all amazing. It just did a great job. But once you get into playing the game and exploring the world, that's where a lot of my problems settled in. My biggest things is it just didn't feel rewarding. It felt inconsistent and the combat system was terrible. And I'm going to go through and explain each of the ones in more detail. As I was exploring this world, I just never felt like I was getting anywhere. I didn't feel like a sense of progression. Most of the time I even felt like I wasn't even going where I was supposed to be going. It just was like, am I even going the right way? Particularly toward the end, I definitely felt like I was just kind of running around and I didn't really feel progressive at all. And even if it wasn't where I was supposed to go, I wouldn't find anything awesome or rewarding. I just would have to turn around and go back the way I came. This did cause some big problems because I just felt the platforming and just kind of the exploration itself just was kind of unfun and not rewarding in a good sense. I feel like this game was weirdly difficult. It ended up being far more difficult than I A, expected, or B, it needed to be. It just was not what I was expecting. This is on full display in the brutal escape moments of the game. After you beat a certain temple, something happens, and you have to run away and get away from the area as quick as possible while doing all the strategic and accurate platforming. And unfortunately, the platforming in this game isn't that accurate. It isn't really meant for speed and quickness like these sections wanted it to be. And they just ended up being frustrating and just inconsistent. And when I say inconsistent, I mean basically the whole gameplay experience. It started out so great, and then it just kind of slowly died, and then it kind of have a brief moment of awesome, and then it just kind of die again. And it just was very roller coaster. It wasn't ever consistently fun or consistently not fun. It was just such a bumpy wave. Like I said, this game starts out great, and it was the most fun I had the whole game. If the whole game was as fun and as enjoyable as the beginning was, I would have loved this game. But unfortunately, it just crashes so hard and so fast, and it just ended up never picking back up. And I felt like the platforming was never consistently easy or consistently difficult. If it was one or the other, or it did a good job of transitioning between both, I felt like it would have flowed a little bit better, but I felt like it was just so abrupt between mindlessly easy or brutally difficult. It was like flicking on and off a light switch. It just never had a good transition. There was no flow or transitions between difficult and easy segments. And it was frustrating because the game would just introduce you to new mechanics and then just kind of expect you to learn quickly or die over and over and over and over and over and over again until you got the hang of it. And I just never felt like that was a solid way to introduce the mechanics of this game because most of the mechanics in this game just don't make any sense or they just don't really work. And I'm fine with trial and error, but the trial and error in this game just felt like busy work. It didn't feel like it was trying to get you to learn. It just felt like, we're going to make this game difficult just to give you something to do. And I didn't feel like that was the right way to approach it. I think older video games are great because they're older and so they have limitations. They can't really have as much random elements. And I feel like that's awesome because you make something difficult and you can kind of learn to it. You can do some trial and error and adapt and learn from the situation. But I just feel like Ori and the Blind Forest was just so inconsistent that you weren't able to learn. The trial and error just felt very not rewarding. It didn't feel like I accomplished anything by the time I successfully completed what I needed to do. And I feel like this really hurt Ori and the Blind Forest because it could have been a great kind of trial and error and learning from your experiences and kind of getting more skill as you play the game. But I actually felt like by the end of the game, I was worse at it than when I had started. Something like Hollow Knight is a fantastic example of why you should do something like that, because Hollow Knight does it right. You start Hollow Knight and it's difficult and you're going to try to learn how to work the combat and the best way to approach different situations, and you learn and adapt to different situations, and by the end of the game you feel like you've gained some skill, you've learned something, and you've improved. And I thought that was great as it just felt rewarding. It felt fun playing it because I knew I was improving, I was getting better, and just Ori didn't have that. If Ori had used the mechanics to its advantage and introduced kind of stuff slowly and organically as you continue through the experience, and slowly introduce them and use them in new and different and difficult ways, that would have been awesome. And then at the end of the game, use them at their most difficult form. Use these mechanics to create cool and interesting puzzles or difficult segments where you're like, okay, I started easy and I slowly worked my way up. And I just didn't feel like we got this with Ori. I feel like it just throws you into some brand new mechanics in their most difficult form at the very end of the game. It doesn't give you a chance to learn these mechanics because the game ends not long after. Like I said, this game is a lot of trial and error and not learning a whole lot from it. And this is really hurt by the terrible save system. So the save system works that you can only save when you have a specific amount of resources, but you can also use these other resources for different abilities or different things you can do around the world. And I felt like that was kind of lame as it took away from this trial and error system. So instead of beating a hard segment and then being able to save so you didn't have to do that hard segment again, you're out of resources because you had used your saves out during the previous difficult sections. So then you had to die and redo all those sections again, and it just didn't feel awesome. And this could have been used so well, but I just feel like it didn't get implemented well, that I just ended up having to throw myself at difficult sections over and over and over and over again, trying to learn, but I just didn't feel like I could because I knew once I got past this, there would be another difficult section. And it honestly made me not want to finish the game. And it was a big bummer when you saved and you got past something difficult and you're like, oh, this feels great. And then you get stuck on something difficult again. And then you're like, okay, I finally beat that thing, but then immediately die due to some weird timing or a terrible mechanic. And it just was very frustrating because then you had to go back and do what you had to do all over again. And it just wasn't a fluid or awesome system. And going back to what I said, it just feels unrewarding. I would beat a very difficult segment and it was so frustrating. And I would look forward to beating it to see what would be happening next, but I was just rewarded with more crap. I didn't get a new life upgrade. I didn't get a cool new ability, some new upgrade to improve my powers. Just nothing. It was just more crap and more terrible timing and mechanics. Metroid is a great example of how you can do this well. You hit a very difficult section in Metroid with the platforming, and you finally beat it and get past it, and you're rewarded with some new weapon upgrade, or a health or an energy cell, or some new ability, just something awesome in Metroid. It felt rewarding for even exploring off the beaten path. Ori doesn't have that. I feel like most of the time when I did something difficult, I just wasn't rewarded at all. And most of the life and health upgrades are hidden in invisible walls. And most of those I found by accident, not through completing some difficult section that was kind of off the main path. It just was hidden in a wall and it just didn't feel rewarding. It didn't feel like I was doing anything progressive. Hollow Knight does this as well. You find a difficult boss fight and you have to kind of keep throwing yourself at it over and over again to learn from it. Find when the right times to attack was, or even when the best time to attack, where to attack, and things like that. Hollow Knight was great at its reward system. You did something difficult and you were rewarded with a new ability or some cool new area to explore. But with Ori, you just don't get anything. Just more stuff, more crap. And I hate to say it, but Ori and the Blind Forest has one of the most terrible combat systems I've seen in a Metroidvania game. 100% of the time, you are just mashing the attack button with zero skill required. There aren't any different types of attacks or different abilities. It's just mashing that attack button over and over and over and over and over again. And it was really boring. Okay, so that's what you have to do in Hollow Knight and Metroid, jump around and shoot or attack. But in Hollow Knight or Metroid, they have different aspects to them that make it interesting. In Hollow Knight, you have to move around and find the best time to attack. When is the enemy vulnerable? Or even where to attack, because certain enemies have shields or other sort of armor that you have to work around. In Metroid, different enemies require different types of ammo, so you have to figure out which ammo works best on which enemies. And if you're out of ammo, you have to go and find that ammo or find some way to get around this enemy. Or he just doesn't have anything interesting like that. It's just mashing the attack button and jumping around like a freaking maniac. The combat in this game could have been so cool if they had done something similar to Cuphead, where you have like different types of attacks and you could use different types of ammo for different enemies. For example, if you had like a homing attack similar to like what the game has, except for it didn't do as much damage and it was really helpful on far to reach or flying enemies. Or if they had like kind of a heavy attack that was really useful on armored enemies, but it was slower and didn't fire as fast. Or if they had kind of like a very quick fire attack that was used to get rid of environmental blockage or bigger groups of smaller enemies. Something like that could have been really interesting and made you have to kind of switch up your tactics depending on what types of enemies were around. Or you only had a certain attack up to a point, and then when you unlock that new attack, then you could go back and use it on more difficult enemies, or even boss fights to unlock cool rewards or different areas to explore. Be awesome to kind of ease you into something like that. And then at the end of the game, they have a bunch of different enemy types surrounding you, so you have to choose your different ammo types and kind of be very strategic about it and jumping around and switching ammo and taking out different enemies. That could have been so much more interesting than what we got. And while I said I loved the lighting and the look of this world, this actually ends up hurting the combat as well, because everything in this game is so bright and everything glows. But when you're attacking something, it really glows and it illuminates your foe. And that's unfortunate because you have to be able to see your foe to know when they're going to attack, so you know when to jump and move and dodge. But you can't see because there's so much light and flashing going on around the enemy. It was really frustrating. Okay, I know I just plastered Ori and the Blind Forest, and I feel really bad because I really did want to enjoy this game. I tried so hard to love this game because I knew people really liked it, and it just looks awesome. I did really enjoy the music and the visuals, and the story was great. It just, much else didn't really catch my attention and was just generally unfun. If I wasn't trying to review this game, I would have put it down and never touched it for the longest time. I just didn't want to finish this game, but I had to give it a fair shot. I just kept holding out hope that this game would impress me, show me something cool, give me a reason to like it. I just unfortunately never got that. Every time I would pick it up, I would be like, maybe this is the time. This game will show me how awesome it is, why people love it so much. And I guess just in the end, I didn't think Ori and the Blind Forest was fun. It just was very boring and not fun. So would I recommend this game? Probably not. I feel like I had too many problems with it and I just didn't have fun. Games are supposed to be fun and entertaining, and just with Ori and the Blind Forest, I didn't have fun. And it's such a bummer because I know people love this game. It is so beloved, and you look at the scores, it's got really awesome reviews, and it's just as great. And I really wanted to be one of those super positive reviews and tell you how awesome this game was. I just didn't have fun. And it makes me sad to say it. I really, really wanted to like this game. And Ori and the Blind Forest really let me down. But if you watch this video and it doesn't deter you, you're still determined to like this game, or you haven't played it, but you've seen so many other people say really positive things and you just still feel like you want to try it out, go for it. You might actually like it, and I really hope you do, because I really wanted to. It was just very unfortunate that I didn't enjoy this game. Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you did enjoy it, and let me know what you think of Ori and the Blind Forest. What's your thoughts? So let me know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, if you want to hit like, subscribe, and the bell to get notified every time I post a new video, that would be awesome. And while you're here, if you want to see more of me, I'm over at Twitch at twitch.tv/aGameForYourThoughts. I'm streaming there all the time, and I would love to see you there. Thanks again for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you guys next time on A Game for Your Thoughts.